All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode, let's see here, 343, I think, of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of healthy marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way according to God's design. My name is Seth Hensley. I come on the show twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be reviewing a video by Erica Komisar, who is somebody that I've been talking about a lot on the show recently. She's somebody who is done a lot of work in the parenting space, a lot of work in the child education space, a lot of work in the development of children and understanding the development of children. And so we're going to be talking about her thoughts on school today. We're going to be talking about something because I'm a school teacher. That's my 9 to 5. That's what I do. Podcasting is just a side gig. And so it's not even a side gig. Gig implies there's money involved. I'm doing this for free because I enjoy it. And so, yeah, let's get into this interview. I'm curious to hear what she says, because I've heard her before. I've been reviewing a lot of her content for you guys, and I agree with her a lot. Now maybe you don't, and as always, feel free to reach out and let me know what your thoughts are about this episode through the link in the show notes, and give me your take on it. Because I would love to hear your take as well as hers. It's not like I just want to hear expert perspectives. I want to hear people who have been in the trenches, already raised their own children, have perspectives that I might not have that would make it interesting. So reach out, make it a conversation through the YouTube comments or by sending us a message on the Restoring Rapport Facebook or Instagram page. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what Erica Komisar says are some problems with education.
How much is school broken from your perspective?
That's where I was going next.
Because it seems to me
that's
like
another piece.
some of the things that, we talk about that a lot in
Yeah.
Dad Saves America. I've made a lot of choices for my own son.
Education. So if we're going to talk about little boys, then we've feminized little boys in making them sit in circle time at a very early age, earlier and earlier. Pre-K used to be not earlier. In my day, it was 1 year before kindergarten, 4. At 4 years old, you went to pre-K 3 days a week, 3 hours a day.
Yeah, that's what I
And sometimes your mommy sat in the background and watched you play. So you could do what Margaret Mahler called rapprochement, which is go do emotional refueling and go get a hug and then go back to play. Sort of like
I've heard
mommy
this.
and me.
You sort of go off,
Yeah.
and that circle actually grows. You first get there, you're attached, then you make a quick little run, and you come back.
That's right.
And then you get a little further out, and then maybe by the end of the day, you're not running back so much because you're
That's
playing
it.
with friends.
Gives you the courage to explore. But what's happened is, for economic and practical reasons, I would say for adult reasons, it's gotten pushed back earlier and earlier. Parents want to go to work. They want to go to work full time. Some of them have to go to work full time. So it's gotten pushed back. So preschool is really daycare. It's not preschool. And it starts as early as 14 months. So at 14 months, you're putting a little boy who's meant to be running around and toddling and knocking towers down and building, and what we call build, destroy, build. Building towers, destroying
The most
them, building
fun
them
sequence
again.
I've ever known.
Yes, build, destroy, build. And they're meant to be roughhousing and learning about the world through physical exploration. So
Okay, so my thoughts so far on what she's saying. So I'm a public school teacher, so I can give you the thoughts that are inside the public school industry, and then I can give you the thoughts as somebody who is a parent, soon-to-be parent, going, considering whether or not to send my child to public school. And this is extremely complicated. I'll tell you that inside the public school industry, the reason for sending your child to preschool is not presented as daycare. It's presented as preparing your child for kindergarten, preparing them for school. Because they're legally required to have schooling starting at that age. And so you might as well prepare them for it, get them school ready, get them around other kids, get them down with some of the necessary skills for the modern public education system, such as using scissors, sitting in your seat, using kind words, being respectful, forming lines, things like that. Okay. Basically, crowd control techniques and fine motor skills that are necessary for a lot of the school activities that you're going to be doing. So that's the reason that public school presents preschool is a good thing. Okay, the reason that I think it's a mixture. So here's what I think. I think your kid actually does have an easier adjustment to kindergarten if they did go to preschool, but I don't necessarily think that going to preschool or kindergarten at the early ages that we do, 3 and 4 and 5, is necessarily conducive to maximizing your child's growth during those specific developmental stages. I don't think it works well. I don't think 3, 4, 5 year olds are set up and designed biologically, neurologically for a classroom setting. I think they are exactly what Erica is describing here. They are set up for free play. They are set up for social interaction with their primary caregivers and beginning to transition into social interaction with other children of the same age and adults that are not their primary caregivers. They are not necessarily, I think we basically put kids in school too early and start forcing cognitive functions on them and academic concepts that they're simply not developmentally prepared to handle. And so we're kind of like forcing things early. And it's all in the name of having them be good readers and immersing them in literacy and all this. But at the same time, it's like, are we forcing something before it's time? Are we trying to produce fruit that's not supposed to be happening yet? That would be the question that I have. And it's like that's never good. When you rush things and you could miss out on, a lot of stuff, and actually you can break some things too doing that. So I just think we should be really careful. So it kind of depends on how you're going to raise your kid. Like if you know you're going to send them to preschool or to public school, I'm sorry, then perhaps a year of preschool is maybe even more, is a great idea for acclimating them to the school environment. If you're not sold on the idea of public school, perhaps you should consider other more relaxed options that allow children to develop at their own pace rather than at the pace that the government tries to outline for them, if that makes sense. Because I think the public school does kind of rush development a lot. I think kids are really prime for the academic concepts that we're trying to push on them by like third grade, maybe second grade in some cases. First grade, kindergarten, I do not think kids are primarily, developmentally, I should say, ready to be working on the academic concepts and cognitive disciplines that we're kind of trying to force on them early in kindergarten and preschool, if that makes sense. Now, I do think preschool prepares your child for kindergarten. Like I said earlier, I think it does give them the fine motor skills. I think it does acclimate them to having other children in the room and realizing, hey, I'm not the only kid in this room that has wants and desires and needs. There are other kids that my teacher has to take care of and that I have to get along with and that I have to kind of, wrestle with figuratively in order to get what I want. And I also have to give up some things that I want for them. And they just kind of have to learn to put their friend first and stuff like that. Really interesting, though. Let's continue with what she says. Really, really cool so far.
So instead, we feminize boys by making them sit like little girls in circle time. And even little girls can't sit in circle time.
How distinct is the boy versus the girl in terms of these impulses? Because I know it's not wholly separate. There's an overlap, right?
Little boys who are between 3 and 5 years old have surges of testosterone almost as much as in adolescence.
Wow.
And so they need to run and jump and push and explore, and they're not getting to do that. Instead, they're sitting quietly and they're going crazy. So basically what we're seeing is distractibility in a lot of these little boys is just stress, because what we're doing is by forcing a little boy who's meant to be running and jumping and playing physically and learning about the world physically to sit quietly in circle time, the frustration tolerance is not there. Right? So we're doing that to little boys and we're labeling them. And then if they can't sit in circle time, the school calls parents and says, your child has ADHD. We'd like to medicate your child.
Right.
So does that suit the schools? Of course it does. It suits the schools because they get a quiet little passive sedated boy. Okay. That's a problem. The other problem is that we're pushing cognitive learning, left brain learning before social emotional learning. Play, in the word kindergarten, meant garden of children. That's what it means. A garden of children is not sitting in circle time learning letters and numbers. A garden of children is building towers and knocking them down, is doing imaginary play, is putting on princess clothes, is finger paint, is playing with Play-Doh and clay. It's meant to be free play. And you learn through free play and imaginary play things like frustration tolerance, conflict resolution. You work through a lot of areas of conflict resolution through play. And so we've taken that away from children and replaced it with left brain. So I think of the analogy as it would be like left brain learning before social emotional learning, or right brain learning is like putting your shoes on before your socks.
So you talked about how boys are getting feminized, which is, for many...
And for those of you who are curious, maybe why she's saying that the education system has been feminized, just think about the activities that are going on in the education system. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that it is more catered to women, or girls, I should say, young women. It's a lot of fine motor skills. It's a lot of sitting still. It's not a lot of robust physical movement or gross motor activity. In fact, gross motor activity and rough physical movement is extremely discouraged and punished because you're in a cement block room with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 other children, increasingly larger class sizes, by the way, and minimizing movement becomes necessary in order to prevent accidents from happening. And accidents are going to happen in a cement block. And the reason you might be like, well, why are you trying to prevent accidents? Aren't kids supposed to get hurt and fall down and scrape their knee? It's like, well, yes, that's how your kid's supposed to learn. You got to remember, I'm now like in the classroom, I'm kind of responsible for your children. And sadly, a lot of the times I'm afraid of getting in trouble or, something like that because I didn't enforce some kind of boundary, protective, preventative measure that would keep a kid from getting hurt because, again, it's not my child. So, yeah, ideally, I do think that, yeah, kids should just kind of learn by getting hurt and then learn to stop and think before they act through that. But a lot of teachers try to prevent that from even happening because we're afraid of the repercussions as far as how the parents will react to our supervision. Okay, if that makes sense. And it can also be a lot more serious too when you have 14 kids in the room if there's an accident, because if there's a lot of movement going on, it's not just like one little kid getting hurt because he was being stupid. It's more like 3 or 4 getting hurt because one was being stupid. And that's like punishing innocence. So it's kind of complicated here, but the point is she's 100% right that education is kind of a feminized environment, and it's not really designed for little boys as a general rule. And they are being, the solution seems to be, instead of incorporating gross motor activity, it seems to be, well, just diagnose them with ADHD and, try to medicate them, which I don't think works every time. I think it's definitely bad for some children. I think that it's way overused, way overprescribed, way overdiagnosed, if that makes sense. And now I'm a teacher. I can't diagnose. And so I think when she said that teachers need to kind of say that kids have ADHD there, you need to consider like teachers are not medically trained. So we don't really know. We just kind of guess using our experience, if that makes sense. So when a teacher says a child has ADHD, according to his or her own perspective, you need to just take that with a grain of salt because we are not trained in that kind of thing. Okay. We have a lot of experience with kids. Like I've already worked with thousands of kids and I'm only 27. And so I have a lot of experience with kids. I know what they do. I know how they work. I know what they think. I know how they act. I know what they are wondering. I know what their impulses are. I know what their inclinations are. But medically speaking, I'm not able to do that. So, but I do think that Erica's right that we overuse ADHD diagnoses as the solution to an environment that is simply not designed for boys to learn in. So I think she's right there. Free play, I do think, is the solution. That's one of the the strengths that I think homeschooling has. But again, the weakness I think homeschooling has, I was homeschooled K through 12, is that you have to work a lot harder for your social circles. Not that you can't do them. I think you can absolutely be well socialized as a homeschooler, but you have to work a lot harder than your public school neighbor does. Like their public school neighbor literally just shows up to school and has access to like 600 kids for like 5-6 hours a day. And you don't even have to get them there. Like they can ride to school through the bus system. Like there's literally no effort to get them social circles. Now, the quality of those social circles and the people they're exposed to in their social circles, you don't really have control of, which is another weakness, I think, of public school. But if you get a really good school, I think a public school can be a great way and a really good year, more specifically, of children. I think public school can be a really great way to socialize. But let's continue.
Going to sound inflammatory.
Wouldn't be the first time I said something that was inflammatory.
Don't start your day with a
True,
gross
she's kind of
piece
known for
plastic.
that. I mean, not that she does it on purpose, but she's kind of fighting a lot of popular ideas here. And anytime you're fighting popular ideas, you're in for some lashback.
for girls? Are girls, I mean, I know this. We've had Warren Farrell on the show, who's the author of The Boy Crisis, and he really led the way on pointing out that in every measurable statistic you have on boys and men, they're not doing great. They're not doing great with health, with wellness, with life expectancy, with criminality, with educational attainment, with employment. Women are kicking our butts. But is there stuff about the school system that's also bad for girls too, or is it better suited to girls?
It's better suited to girls, but girls are struggling socially. Girls are cracking under the pressure to be perfect. So girls are incredibly self-conscious. There's a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is the stress regulating part of the brain. It's a little almond-shaped part of the brain, the oldest part of the brain. It lies very deep in the limbic system, and it's meant to be very diminutive and not very active in the first 3 years, and then it's meant to come online slowly. Because of all the stress that we're imposing on kids to be high achieving and read and do math, and so girls tend to be more perfectionistic than boys in general because their amygdalas are on fire. It's the threat sensing part of the brain. They're very aware and very self-conscious about judgment.
This is true. Something that I've noticed is like there are some girls that will make a very, very small mistake in my classroom. Like even something as small as like doing the wrong routine at the wrong time or something, not even something immoral, just very small, like, error and, work. And they will literally they won't fall to pieces or have a meltdown like the more emotionally fragile younger boys will, but they'll like internalize it and be very, very bothered by the fact that they just made a mistake, however small, it doesn't matter. Like I had one girl this year, really sweet, really, really well behaved, like masterfully behaved girl. Like she has had some discipline in the home, I can tell. And she comes into school and like absolutely just does perfectly as far as behavior goes. And one day she came into my room and she was like, I could tell she was just a little bit mad or irritated about something. I was just watching her. I didn't really understand what was going on. And I asked her, I was like, what's going on? And I'm obviously not going to use her name, but she was like, well, I got in trouble with my sub. I got my name wrote on the board. And I was like, I was like, and she, basically what happened is her entire day was thrown off because of that. That doesn't happen to boys, generally speaking. Especially the boys that are a little bit rougher around the edges and that get in trouble a little bit more. Actually, it doesn't do, having their name written on the board doesn't do enough to check their behavior. Some of the girls are very, very bothered by having their name on the board. Like, it's like a fate worse than death kind of, like, they're like, how could that happen? I'm a good kid kind of thing. And it really messes with their identity and their confidence and stuff like this. And I think that causes them to have negative behaviors. I think she's definitely right. They're just over self-conscious and overly judgmental of themselves. And that's what's, I think, tearing them up.
Judgment of teachers, judgment of parents, wanting to be good. So, all that stuff about the good little girl, that has to do actually with a gender difference. The idea that girls are very sensitive to wanting to conform, to wanting to be good, to wanting to be perfect. And what we've done by making the educational environment so achievement-oriented and perfectionistic is we have turned up the volume in their amygdala. So by the time they get to adolescence, they break down because they just can't take it. It's like a robot going, I got to get an A, I got to get an A, I got to get an A, and they literally break down. So girls are breaking down from the pressure, the academic pressure, because they feel this tremendous judgment on them.
Well, and this is a great transition into adolescence. So you had mentioned earlier 3 stages in adolescence. Let's come back to that. Lay out for me what's happening in adolescence. And you're saying adolescence is 9 to 25. Mm-hmm. So map it for me.
Well, so early adolescence is sort of monopolized by physical changes, right? It's the beginning of puberty for most kids, and puberty has been pushed back in girls, meaning it starts earlier. Girls are going into puberty as early as 9.
Is this dietary and environmental?
No, this is, well, I would say it's environmental, and I've got this from a couple other doctors that I've listened to on the internet, so don't take my word for it. Go look it up. But I think early puberty onset in women is actually caused by an absent father or a father who was not involved. And I don't know the ramifications and the consequences of early onset puberty, but I do know that that is directly correlated to father presence and involvement, which is very interesting. So I would say environmental here and not dietary, but perhaps there is both here. But that's just what I've heard. If you have a different perspective on that, reach out and let me know what you think. Or if you want to research it further, look it up and let me know. I would be curious to hear what your thoughts are.
There are a lot of theories about it. Some of them are about dietary and environmental. There's more body fat. Body fat has been related to puberty for years. I mean, we know that there's a correlation between the amount of body fat and when you go into puberty. But
So being heavier, so our obesity path has hastened puberty.
yes, but there's also other things. There's environmental, there's estrous hormone, mimickers. There's lots of things in the environment that are probably pushing it up.
It's this time that historically, right, has, bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, rites of passage, confirmation if you're Catholic, they all center right around this time, this 12, 13 years old.
So social changes. It's a terribly conflict-filled part of childhood. So for most people, they have horror stories. There's a few that have what I call amnesia and don't remember how horrible middle school was and middle adolescence, but middle adolescence is really social challenges is what sort of monopolizes that period of time.
So the early stage is the physical.
And the middle is social. And by social, it's...
And is the middle high school?
The middle is 14 to 18.
Okay, so roughly high school.
So, yeah, roughly high school. But it's really figuring out where you fit in. Where do I fit in culturally? Where do I fit in my gender and my sexuality? And it's the beginning of experimenting sexually. So you're moving from having best friends who are of the same gender to having, boyfriends and girlfriends and experimenting sexually. And it's very present oriented. So think of early adolescence as a pull to the past. So there's a feeling in early adolescence that you're not sure if you want to be a big kid or if you still want to go back and be a little kid.
I can almost remember, although I might be remembering the feelings of as a father more than myself, the pain of that transition. The you feel the sense of loss. Sometimes it's also
something I would say here to kids who are just, kind of going through these transitions like they're talking about. Just like, I would encourage you, your life really does get better as you go, barring, of course, reckless or stupid decisions. I would say that my life has gotten so much infinitely better since puberty and adolescence. As I got older, it continually got better. Once you get kind of, I would say especially that's just a rough time to be. Probably the hardest times of my life were early adolescence to late puberty. Those are really, really rough times. Even early 20s kind of. I'm in the best spot of my life I've ever been in right now at 27. So I would just encourage you kids, your life doesn't have to get worse. And I've had kids come up to me at post school. I was on lunch duty one day, again using no names here, but I was on lunch duty and I had a kid literally say to me, he was like, really what happened was I corrected him for an unreasonably ridiculous behavior. It was like throwing food or something. I was like, we don't do that here. Stop doing that, or I'm going to move you to a table by yourself to eat, and you're not going to be able to talk to your friends. So why would you continue doing that? Make a good decision so you can get good fruit. It's kind of the conversation I had with him. And also I basically said hey man, if you want to live an easier life, a good life, a life that has a lot of good things in it, you need to learn to get along with people and not be a pain in the butt to be around. It's basically the kind of the conversation I had with him. Because basically your whole life is going to be working with other people, and your job, and your family, and your friend groups. At Walmart, like literally anywhere, you're gonna have to be working with people. So you might as well make it easier on yourself. And he kind of shut that conversation down by saying that he wasn't going to be alive when he was 21, which really made me sad. I mean, that kind of thing, guys. I don't know if it's despair or ignorance or something that these kids have been taught or told by other adults that are really in a messed up situation, but there's hope for your future, little guys. I mean, seriously, your life can get so much better than it is now. My life definitely has. And I would just encourage you, if you know a little kid that's felt that way or something, man, I mean, I would definitely disagree with that, and my life experience would be an exact opposition to that. Like, my life has gotten easier and not worse and harder as I got older. So just be encouraged. Like, you got this. You might be in a rough time right now. School might be kind of hard. I'm sure it's really hard, you know. You got a big workload, you got a lot of stuff you got to keep straight. Got a lot of rules you got to follow. You're not making any rules. You're following everybody else's rules. So I understand it's hard, but your life can really, really get better as you get older. So don't despair and feel like, things only get worse from here. And definitely don't listen to adults that tell you that things are only going to get worse from here. Like, guys, if you're, just don't listen to that, because everybody has a different life experience. And really what those people are telling you is, hey, I've done things poorly and I'm reaping some bad fruit. I'm getting a bad harvest for my bad actions. And so, yeah, things are going to get worse. You wait and see. Things are only going to get worse from here. You're going downhill. Things are going south. If you're listening to people saying that kind of stuff, it's like, they might have done it right, but they might have done it wrong. Sorry, but you don't have to. You don't have to. Your life can get better and not worse. So I would just encourage you there.
So your friends and the things you
I
used.
want to skip to where she talks about can parents course correct and talk about some solutions to these bad problems that she's been talking about, because she's really been hitting the diagnosis pretty hard. But I want to hear her talk about some solutions and what parents can do to kind of course correct this ship.
So what's your advice for the parent who's come to this conversation? Their kid is 18. They're thinking to themselves, man, I did a lot of this stuff that I shouldn't have done, but I want to change.
Yeah.
Can I change now? Can I, so let's start there. It's
Where there's life, there's hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've done my best, but clearly my child is nervous. They're super stressed out. Maybe I've focused on success in these metrics too much, but I can change. Help me change.
Pull the plug on the pressure, and be aware. Self-awareness is the key. If you're aware as a parent that your anxiety over your child being successful, I mean, again, remember that all of this, for the most part, comes from a very good place in parents, because they love their children and they want them to be successful, and they define success as getting into the best school and getting the best job and making the most money and having the most stuff, and being self-aware enough to redefine that with your children. Start to have talks, have good open communication, and talk about what success means, and talk about some of the mistakes you've made, and talk about even the mistakes in giving your child the impression that success was driven by good grades and excellence in academics and sports, and that actually success is mental health, success is balance, success is happiness, success is relationships. That's success. And in the end, the child who makes it for the long haul is the child who is, as you say, the one who's more balanced and happier. And so redefining success as a parent, and then reinforcing that, really reinforcing it, but being aware that you can say the right thing, but underneath feel something different. So you have to get into alignment, your deep feelings with your words. Because
I would say, like, Proverbs talks about train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Not as a guarantee that your children will never make mistakes if you raise them the right way, but as a general indication that what the routines you establish in a child's early life will carry over into their adult life and influence the course of the rest of their life in a positive way. And so I would establish routines. Routines are really powerful. Habits are really powerful. James Clear has a book called Atomic Habits that basically teaches people how to build habits. If you're curious and interested in building some habits and routines in your parenting, check out his book there for sure. But like, also, I don't know. I understand, like, my first year, I don't understand from the parent perspective yet. I will very soon, but I do understand what it's like to be extremely emotionally invested in the course of a child's life and feel like you're not helping them get there as well as you could. I do understand that. Because my first year of kindergarten, I was very emotionally invested in the course of my children's life, not just their academic career, but their actual life, and the lessons that they were learning in my room that would hopefully impact the quality of their life that they had way outside the classroom. And I actually enforced rules too hard. Like, I would literally pick every battle every single disrespectful thing that happened in my classroom, um, I would immediately like squelch. And it was almost like, I don't know, at some point, see, here's where it's weird because I don't know if that works in a parenting, you know, situation or not because I haven't been a parent, but I know sometimes it doesn't work in a classroom situation because yes, you stay consistent, you reinforce the boundaries, you know, establish those classroom rules and you hold the line. But at some point, so these kids go home to parents that are not like you and they don't have those same boundaries. So everything that you're teaching is being warred against by their parents' philosophy. And so at some point, you've got to realize, like, maybe I should stop punishing this behavior because this is actually a virtue at this child's home, you know? And that's a really sad because I don't know that these kids could do it. I've had kids where like I would stay so consistent. I would say stay so consistent by with rewarding good behavior and withholding good from bad behavior, and there would still be like all next to no change. Next to no change for, and I'm not just talking for like a week. I'm talking I did this for a year. Every day, 180 school days, man. It was brutal for this kid because they're like they're behaving the way they behave at home in my classroom. And of course, they're getting bad things in my classroom for it, and they're not getting good things in my classroom for it. But at home, they go home and they get good things for it, right? And they don't get attention and stuff when they don't do stuff like that. And it's like, it just kind of feels like everything I was doing was kind of undone, and it was really discouraging. But like, I don't know. I just know you can hold the line too hard because I kind of made that kindergarten experience more miserable than I think I needed to by being authoritative and not authoritarian and not like a super hyper tyrannical disciplinarian, but just like by being a little bit too focused on boundary enforcement that I maybe just didn't see that that child might not have been capable of doing what I was asking of her. And so, yeah, I don't know. This it's just kind of there's this really complicated. And I know that all parents make mistakes, all teachers make mistakes. You learn better every year. Um, but yeah, this I do like that she's been kind of getting at this perfectionism thing of like not being too much of a perfectionist, realizing everybody's going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes as a parent or teacher. Your kids are going to make lots of mistakes, and so expect that to happen. You know, expect yourself and your children to make mistakes. Expect yourself and your students to make mistakes, and maybe that will ease the the kind of the burden you're placing on yourself, maybe unnecessarily that you need to be perfect. I would say that's a great teaching children tip. So hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you have, reach out and let me know what your thoughts were through the link in the show notes. Sorry, not the link in the show notes, the YouTube comments, or you can send us a voice or text message to the Restoring Rapport Facebook or Instagram page. Would love to hear from you there. It would make this podcasting system two-way, and it would make this a conversation instead of a boring monologue. Thank you so much for listening today. God bless you guys, and I will talk to you guys next time.